So Generation C is what BBC Radio 1 and other youth-oriented brands are desperate to reach. They are known as the clicking or the content-centric generation. They're always looking for relevance and originality, and they will reward that and share that content with their peers and their friends. Some of the C's from Generation C are up there, but 4 of them, which particularly resonate with Nielsen and with Google, are that they are creators, that they are curators, that they seek connection and they seek community. And I believe when you look at radio, radio is about creativity, it is about curation, it is about connection, and it is about community. So I do not believe, nor do I say that radio in and of itself is a social media, but I do believe that we're uniquely equipped to sit alongside and to augment Generation C and that clicking, content-centric community. Generation C is not a demographic based on age, but it is based on behavior and the sort of media habits that people have. Around 80% of Generation C are millennials, but the rest of us are quickly catching up and changing our behavior. We're also changing the way that we act around each other and our understanding of geography. It's perfectly possible to be in the same room as your teenagers, but have absolutely nothing to do with them socially or in terms of communication, and yet they may be thousands of miles away from their friends, but be intimately connected. We as radio broadcasters are used to being tied in some senses to geography, but radio can now reach beyond those borders to reach new audiences and to reach communities with our compelling content. So, to radio and the matter in hand, why is it that we still produce radio in soundproof boxes if the habit, expectations and habitat of our audiences have changed so dramatically? A lot of radio stations I work with, after 3 hours in a radio studio, the radio presenter may be in fact the most disconnected and least well-informed person involved in the production or the consumption of that program. We need to make sure that radio studios are connected spaces which are across not just the voice of the audience, but the artists of the music that you're playing and the news and information which is available. Your audience is, and we need to make sure that broadcasters are as well. This is a relatively modern radio studio. This is Chris Miles' studio for Radio X. You may have seen some of the visualization content that we produce from that studio in the morning, but it is, in a sense, just a digital soundproof box. The kit inside it, yes, is now a computer, and yes, it was before that digital, but really we are all too often recreating studios which are a digital or a computerized version of the original soundproof box. Yes, you still need a microphone and a transmitter, but the capability to be connected with the audience is much greater than before. One of the problems we have working with radio stations is that one of the first things we do when we go and visit large radio stations around the world is to try and sit down with somebody from digital and online who's responsible for the website and possibly the social strategy, to sit down with some of the broadcast engineering teams who build the studios, and maybe some of the producers and presenters from Breakfast and other programs. And one of the first things we have to do is to introduce those people to one another. There is a firewall, often a gap between what your digital and online people do at radio stations and what happens in the studio. And one of the things that we're very passionate about is breaking down the barriers to make sure the best of your studio content is made available online and through your digital platforms, and to make sure that the best of what's happening on your digital platforms is being referenced in the studio. Perhaps takeaway point number 2 of today would be to make sure that if you do nothing else, you make sure that you are connecting your digital strategy and what happens online with the best of the content and the best of the talent that you have, which in radio will mean looking to the studio and looking to your audio content. One of the things we try and do is build what we call the creative conspiracy. That is to get the technical members of your radio station and the creative members of your radio station working together to see what content could be created if you apply new technology, to see how your content could perhaps be better shared if you use that technology to try and engage and reach new audiences. If there ever was a golden age of radio, I believe maybe it's today, or maybe it's what's about to come. But the age we think about is the age when the creative conspiracy was at its greatest, when the talent in the studio was pushing engineering to say, I wonder if we could do this. What would happen if we had a technology that allowed me to play this jingle or to run this competition? It's not, I think, that technology is no longer helping us, but we've lost the confidence to ask. We've lost the creative tension between what engineering do and what happens in the studio. And all too often, our engineers are based in some remote building, maybe hundreds of miles away, or the people in the studio are afraid of engineering or technology, thinking it's simply going to automate what we do, or the engineers simply think that the people in the studio are just there to break things. So let's recreate that conspiracy where we get engineers working with creative talent, and radio can then produce some truly amazing things.